start with Jessica?
Yes, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Roy.
Afternoon.
Could you update us on any injuries ahead of tomorrow, please?
Well, still Christian Benteke is the one. You know, we've been expecting that. He needs a bit more time, so we know that, but he's making good progress. But he's really the one, apart from the other two long-term injuries of Scott Dan and Connor Wickham, but both are back in training, so we've got a good squad of players at the moment.
Now, it's been a few days since the match at Bournemouth. Do you feel there's been any lessons learned from that experience?
Well, not really. I mean, obviously we made a mistake to lose the game, and there's no one trying to deny that, and certainly Mamadou, who is the most important person concerned, is not trying to deny the responsibility, but mistakes happen in football matches. I tend to look at matches over the whole, really. I thought that over the 95 minutes we actually played very, very well, and obviously bitterly disappointed that we made that mistake and it cost us the game. But the fact is, in every game that's won, the manager of the losing team could point to a mistake that his team has made, which has cost a goal, perhaps, which has cost them the game. So in Mamadou's case, it was doubly unfortunate because he's been so good. He's been arguably, playing the best football of his time, certainly at Crystal Palace. We've been really delighted with everything that he's been doing, and it's tough for him, of course, to have to accept that, okay, on this occasion I was punished for a mistake I shouldn't have made.
How has it affected him and the other players, losing in that way, in that late, dramatic finish?
No, it happens in football. That we have to come to terms with that. You've got to be mentally strong in football. You know, it's not a question of what you deserve and it's what you get. But you must continue to believe that the better you play and the better your performance is, and the more you're able to have control during the game and to create chances, you're going to win more games than you lose. But there's always going to be games like this one, which is a bitter pill to swallow, because with 5 minutes to go I thought we'd done more than enough to get our result, and I think that was the general opinion too.
At this stage in the season, how important is it now to try and get this first home win? Is that something that's on your mind and the players' minds, or is it something that we're just thinking about?
Well, I mean, everyone thinks about it, I can't deny that, but it's not something which occupies our every waking minute, because we know that wanting something isn't the same as getting something. All we can do is prepare as best we can and put what we think is our best team out on the field with the best possible preparation to win the game, and then the game will be what the game is, and you hope it's going to go your way. You hope that the chances you create are going to be taken. You hope that any mistakes you make are not going to be punished, and that's going to be the case going right the way through the season. Of course, the longer you don't win at home, the more the pressure will build up. We're aware of that, but we can do nothing more than we do to relieve that pressure, and we just need to make certain now tomorrow that we go out and give that performance that we are determined to give.
Do you feel there's a reason behind why you haven't won at home and why you haven't scored?
Not really. I mean, the programme has been measured, I suppose. Liverpool was a tough first one to play at home, but against Southampton and against Newcastle, I thought we had our chances. I thought that, on both occasions it wouldn't have been totally wrong. Certainly in the Newcastle game it wouldn't have been wrong had we won it, but we didn't. The chances didn't go in, and that's also a fact of life, a fact of football life, and the important thing is to make certain that you don't allow it to weigh upon your mind, and even more importantly perhaps, you don't stop going into the areas and doing the things that have been quite good in your general play, which have created the opportunities in the first place.
You mentioned how strong you have to be as a footballer, mentally strong. Have you had to advise the players or give them any kind of support in terms of their mental strength when thinking about that stat, the fact that they haven't played at home? Do you have to talk them out of it and the fact that they shouldn't be dwelling on it?
There won't be too many stats that will really bother us to that extent after last season. I spent the first, three games of my time at the club discussing every week how we were going to get away from the statistic of first 4 games, no goals, no points, no draws. Then it came to 5, then it came to 6, then it came to 7. And then I was being told this is the worst start that a Premiership team's ever made, and that no team has ever survived after getting no points after 7 games, and the minus 18 goal difference basically means you're -1, let alone 0 points. So I spent weeks doing that, as did the players, because I think we got a nice little international break in between times, which added another couple of weeks to the time we had to reflect upon it. And we were strong enough to get over that, so I don't have any real doubts about the players' mental strength, and I certainly haven't felt during the training sessions we've had this week that anyone's needed any extra counselling. They know what happened, they know what was good about Monday night's performance, they know of course what could have been avoided, and they'll be taking all that into the game tomorrow, because every experience strengthens you.
That was a first start for Max Meyer in the game against Bournemouth. How pleased were you with his performance, and do you feel like he could be a player that you use more in the future?
Well, he was bought for us to use, and that he didn't get a start straight away, but I was pleased with his performance. I thought he did well, he worked hard, he had a lot of the ball, so we can't criticise his performance anyway. The thing is, at the moment we have a very strong squad to choose from, and we bought Max and Cech Kouyaté and Jordan Ayew into our squad to make us stronger as a squad of players, not because we thought that the 11 guys who were playing last year were particularly bad or had to be replaced. We brought them in to compete for places and make those that actually had the shirt play even better, because they knew these guys are right behind them. And up to now, that's exactly what's happened. Every time Cech has come onto the field, every time Max has come onto the field, and Jordan, they've proved to me that these three are going to make us a stronger group of players going forward. And you don't play with 11 these days, you play with 18 at least.
Just a question on Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's been left out of the England squad this time around. He came here last season and really enjoyed himself, really made a name for himself. It's often been hard for young players to try and get first team minutes. Would he be someone you consider bringing back to the club as someone who's obviously desperate to get some game time?
Well, I think it's not really right to discuss those things, because it's a hypothesis that Chelsea are not happy with him, a hypothesis that Chelsea are not considering him to be a very important member of their first team squad, and I don't like to discuss players in that respect. What I am prepared to say, of course, and I've said it on many occasions, Ruben Loftus-Cheek did an outstanding job for us when he came here. He really, for us, answered all the questions that we hoped he would answer, and luckily for us, and even more so him, it got him recognised by the national team, and he found himself in Russia representing England, which was a perfect end, if you like, to the season that he'd had with us. So we admire him, we like him very much, and we wish him well. And of course, like a lot of other clubs, I'm sure, when the day comes when he becomes available for transfer, we'll be sticking our nose into that. But whether we'll get him again, that's another matter. Who knows? We'll see.
And finally, on Wolves tomorrow, a promoted team, bucking the trend, very much in form. What kind of threat will they pose tomorrow? Well,
they pose a threat. Their start has been excellent. Obviously, they're a good team. We've watched them as much as we can. We've done our video analysis of them. We've had our reports, of course, our scouting reports, and everything that comes back is very positive with regard to how well they're playing and what good players they have. So it's going to be a big test. They're way up there in the table, which, as you rightly say, for newcomers isn't always the case. So we're preparing for a very, very difficult game. But once again, at the risk of being very boring, it would have been the case had they been bottom of the table too with no points. It wouldn't really have changed our thinking anyway. We'd have still been thinking this is a good team, this is a bona fide Premier League team with some very good players who are capable of causing you some damage. And so we'd have been preparing exactly the same way. But I'm sure their mood is very good, their confidence must be very high. And that's a nice thing to know when you're the coach of a team or the manager of a team, that you have that going for you.
Thank you, Roy.
My pleasure.
Okay, great.
Right, some people are saying that they're actually the best team to have been promoted into the Premier League, if not in the history of the Premier League, for a long, long time, because of the players they have and because of the project and the likes of Ruben Neves, who last year was in the Championship and now is clearly a Premier League player. Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't agree or disagree. I mean, I think that it's dangerous. I certainly wouldn't want that being said if I was the manager of Wolves. I wouldn't want people saying that, you're the best and you're the best team that's ever been promoted. I think it probably depends how far you go back in time, one. I will remind you, of course, that Hull City were top of the Premiership in September not so long ago when I was at Fulham, I think it was. So I'm sure that the manager, Nuno, won't be thinking along those terms. I can only say that when you're in charge of a team like that and you're getting all those nice things said about you and all that praise coming your way, you should lap it up, you should enjoy it. But I'm pretty sure it's not going to his or the players' heads. And I'm sure that, like ourselves and most other teams in the Premier League, they take each game as it comes and they prepare for a difficult task every time they step out onto the field. But I'm impressed by them, like everybody else, and I congratulate them on such a good start.
What do you make of the whole project there? Because last season there were some people in the Championship that weren't overly enamoured by how it was all set up, the Portuguese players coming in under one agent.
No, I don't have any comments about that. I mean, the fact is each club must decide its own strategy when it comes to the manager they want to appoint, the players they want to bring in, which agents they do or do not want to work with. That's entirely up to each and every club, and I don't have any opinion on the subject at all.
The England squad was announced yesterday and Gareth Southgate gave lots of plaudits for bringing in young players. Of course, it's nothing new. You gave Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Eric Dyer, when they were very young men, their England debuts. How far away...
That's just 3 of the 15, but that's okay.
I wasn't going to name them all. How far away this season do you think Aaron Wan-Bissaka is from maybe even making that? Because he's getting more minutes and you're trusting a young player here at Palace.
Well, I would think the first thing to say, if I was in Gareth's position, that he faces very stiff competition, because in Walker and Kieran Trippier they've had great success down that right-hand side, and now there's Trent Arnold as well, who's also doing a fantastic job at Liverpool. So for him to break in, he's got to knock a few people over along the way before he's maybe considered. But we believe in him, we think he's very good. England obviously do too, because they're choosing him to be in their under-21 team. And I think that it's been proven over the last 5 or 6 years really in England that if you are young, if you are in an under-21 team and you've committed your future to England, if you are playing on a fairly regular basis for your team in the league, either Premier League or Championship, you have a chance of being selected. So I think that seeing people like Mount selected on this occasion, Maddison selected on this occasion, the lad from Borussia Dortmund being selected on this occasion, that should really be a fillip for players like Aaron Bissaka, because he should be thinking, well, if those guys can play well enough and attract the attention of the national team manager, so can I.
The last one from me, I mean, if I include Wayne Hennessy and James MacArthur, and I'll include Will because he was born in England, a high proportion of your team are British, which is very, very unusual in the Premier League. I mean, you obviously trust players from the Isles to do what most other managers don't.
Well, you've got to be careful there, because I've only signed 4 players and they're all foreign, so I think I've got to be a bit careful.
Fair enough.
But that doesn't mean to say that I signed them because they were foreign as opposed to English. I'd have been perfectly happy had they been English too, with the qualities that they possess and what they brought to the team. But I should be the last person in the world to start trying to bang the drum that teams should be English, not least of all because I've coached 4 national teams other than the English one, or 3 other than the English one as a foreigner, so I have to be very careful what I say.
Thank you, Pete.
Afternoon, Roy.
Afternoon.
How important is it for Wolves to succeed, particularly in that area, the West Midlands, where they've lost so many top-flight clubs to the Championship in recent years? Aston Villa, West Brom, Birmingham. They're rather shining a light now, aren't they, for that part of England?
Yes, they are. I mean, obviously there was enormous rivalry between West Bromwich Albion and Wolverhampton when I was there, so I was on the wrong side of that rivalry, if you like, as a West Brom manager. But it's a very, very important area of football, the Midlands, Birmingham in the area. The teams you mentioned are top clubs with a fantastic tradition and history, all of them. And, it wouldn't be amiss if all four win the Premiership, with their pedigree and with their traditions. But the fact is, there is no God-given right to that, and traditions and pedigrees don't give you, if you like, a passage into the Premier League. You have to earn it, you have to win it, and then when you're there, you've got to stay there. And Wolves, they actually lost their Premier League status while I was at West Bromwich Albion, and now it's vice versa. Wolves have catapulted back and West Brom down. But I'm sure that for Midlands football and Birmingham football in particular, the people in that area will be looking forward to the day when all four are back in there, and the rivalry at top level is once again. When I went to West Brom, Aston Villa and Birmingham and Wolves, I think, were all in the league, if I remember correctly. And that's not so long ago.
It's a bit left field. Muno, the manager at Wolves, used to be a goalkeeper in his playing days. Goalkeepers don't really make successful managers at the top flight, do they? And why not?
He has.
Well, he's unusual. He's a one.
Well, that's the fact is, you should know by now that of all the statisticians that pride themselves on knowing a lot about the footballing statistics, I'd be very near the bottom of the list. You'd have to go searching to see, who would have filled that role, but I'd be very surprised if someone who really prides himself on knowing all there is to know about English football and managers and where they played, I'd be very surprised if that person couldn't come up with a few names. I can only give you one. That was Dino Zoff.
Totally.
And he wasn't bad, actually. He wasn't a bad goalkeeper.
Okay. That concludes the broadcast.
Just one?
Broadcast,
just a quick one,
okay.
yeah, sure. Roy, there are quite a number of young players who are turning out for England. Most of them have the possibility of playing for other countries. Like, for example, here you have Wan-Bissaka. What would be your advice to both the young players and also the England setup on how to manage that transition? We've seen quite a number of them playing for the under-21s, but then going on to play.
Worse than that, we've seen people like Wilf Sahar playing for the first national team during my time and going on to play for somebody else. So it doesn't have to just be under-21s, it can be playing for the senior national team, and as long as it's not a qualifier, which is or a match in a final tournament, you can change your mind. If you ask me, do I think that's right? The answer is no, I don't. I think people, once they've committed themselves certainly to play for a country at under 21, and even more importantly at senior level, they should stick with it. But as far as England's concerned, they will have to live with that, and you'll find that a lot of players will be tempted by their native land into signing and playing for them instead, on the basis that the coaches and the managers of those teams will be saying, look, you face very stiff competition here in England, whereas if you come to us, there's a much bigger chance that you'll play. But I'm sorry to say that in my experience, the players that I've worked with, and I can probably think of 3 or 4, who have actually committed themselves to a team of maybe their parents or their grandparents, and not committed themselves, say, to England, the country they've been brought up in and educated in. All the ones I know have regretted it, but who knows? I think it would depend very much on your ties to that country. The influence your parents are making on you and your grandparents, of course, that have to be taken into account, but also your ties to the country. And don't forget, we have a lot of players. Bissaka's been with us since the age of about 7 or 8, I think, hasn't he? So, basically speaking, if suddenly he was now to dive off and play for his native land, and I don't even know what that is, I'm ashamed to say.
DRC.
Huh?
DRC.
Yeah, DR Congo. Then in some ways that could be regarded as a bit of a disappointment for us here in England, because we believe it's us and not the DR Congo that have made him the footballer he is today.
And just last one, more and more top players are also opting to pace themselves to manage the number of games that they play at international level. It's a way of perhaps keeping fit because of the high number of games that they have to play for the club. Is this something that you might have perhaps had a discussion with Wilfred Zaha about?
No. Wilfred and I have not discussed his national team duty at all. I was very surprised last time to see that he wasn't included. I still don't know what the reason for that is. I presume it's a reason that is concerns something between him and his national team and has nothing to do with me whatsoever. And I certainly have never been guilty of encouraging or trying to persuade players not to play for their national team, because in my career I've had 4 years with England, I've had 4 years with Switzerland, I've had 2 years with the UAE, I've had 2 years with Finland. What's that, over 12 years is that? 12 years of a career of wanting players to leave their clubs and to play for me in the national team. So it would be unbelievably hypocritical of me to start trying to persuade players you shouldn't be playing for your national team. I believe, maybe even somewhat naively, that being selected for your national team is an honour. It's something you should be proud of, and that basically speaking, when you're given the opportunity, and it's not an opportunity that comes everybody's way, you should be proud and grateful, and you should be keen to go. And I know, for example, here now, Mamadou Sakho, who's not African, well, he's African origin, but he plays in France. He's absolutely delighted that he's been called up for the national team, and his good performances have been recognised. I know very well that Chekou Kouyaté and Pape Soiré are desperate to play for Senegal. They can't wait, and every time a squad is announced and Pape's name is not in it, he's absolutely devastated. So I think in that respect, the African countries aren't any worse off, if you like, than the European countries, where there's maybe just as big a risk that people will try to pull out of their respective national teams because they're worried about future Champions League fixtures or fixtures in the top leagues in Europe.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, that concludes the